So you're building an iOS app and you want to accept in-app payments or subscriptions on this iOS app. Now on the surface of it, it looks really simple, right? You have an iOS app, you open it, you click on the buy button and the payment goes through. But we know as developers, there's lots of moving parts to it and a lot of things happen behind the scenes. So we are going to demystify this whole experience and we are going to look at the steps that you need to do to make all of this happen. So let's start with the goal. The goal is I want to accept in-app payments or subscriptions on this iOS app. Now, this iOS app could be written in Ionic plus plugins or React Native or native Swift or Object-C or in Flutter. The details that we're going to discuss in this video is immaterial to the technology that you choose to build the app. Of course, there's going to be a buy button. You click on it. And then on the back end, you have a server where you want to record that this product has been bought. As soon as the user clicks on buy and the payment goes through, you want to record success. And if the product has been bought, you want to allow certain API calls. And if it has not been bought, you want to reject those API calls. So this is the premise. This is what we want to do. And we want to see what is required to reach here. Let's go through those steps now. Okay, so there are three parts to solving this problem. Part number one is the one-time setup. So you need to set up something on your App Store Connect. Then you need to write some code on the UI side. Then you need code on the backend to verify all this transaction and store it in the DB. So let's start with the one-time setup. So obviously the first step is you go to App Store Connect, you create the product itself. So you go to the app, you go to the in-app payments and subscriptions, you create the subscription, make sure you enter the price, localization and message, because when you go to the UI and you try to create it, these are all different sections. You may forget to enter one of them. If you forget to enter one of them, your in-app payment will not succeed. You will not see the in-app pop-up. The second thing you need to do is you need to create a sandbox account. Now, when we are testing as developers, we don't want to use real credit cards or real payment mechanisms. We want to do fake payments for testing. And we also want very quick refunds, like within 5 minutes, let's say, so that we can test subscriptions again and again. So to do all of that, Apple has this idea, this mechanism of sandbox accounts. Now you have to go to your app and add this sandbox account. And I'll show you all of this in just a sec. Now, because you need to add a new email address for this sandbox account, what we do is if you have a Gmail address or a Google Workspace address, you can use this. You can say user plus sandbox @ whatever your domain name.com is. So in Gmail, plus sandbox is ignored. User @zasklabs.com is used. And when the email lands up in your inbox, this is added as a label to your email. Now make sure you never delete this sandbox account from your app, because once you delete it, you will never be able to add that email again. That it's a permanent delete from your app. The third thing you would do is you would set up a sandbox server URL. So this is the URL where Apple is going to send payloads on your webhook to tell you whether it has succeeded or failed or any such events, renewal, etc. There are two kinds of server URL. One is the sandbox server URL. So any sandbox purchases you do end up here. Then you have something called the production server URL. This is only needed if you are publishing this app to the Play Store. Then on the app UI side, you need to use StoreKit 2. You need to show the products and you need to click product purchase. Before we go to the backend, so on the backend, basically you verify it. Now, before we go into any more detail, I would like to show you on the App Store what it looks like. So the first step is you create these products, right? So you go to subscriptions. You have to create a subscription group. Within this subscription group, you have to create a subscription. For that subscription, make sure you enter all the details. Make sure you set up the prices. Make sure you set up the localization. And also make sure in which regions is it available to. Let me check where that shows up. Availability, yes. So because all of these are separate sections, you may forget one or two of them. So and then you click on save. Let me go back. So that is creating a product. So you just create a subscription or an in-app payment product. The next step is you need to go to app information, and you will find a place where you can enter your URLs, the webhook URLs. Okay, so in app information, you see App Store Server Notification. There are two types of URLs here. The sandbox server URL, as the name suggests, any sandbox purchases that you do will end up on this URL. Any real purchases that the customer does once your app is on Play Store will be sent to this URL. So Apple is going to call these URLs. These are basically webhooks that you are going to expose on your backend. For testing, because you want Apple to call it, anything on your laptop, any server running on your laptop must be exposed using a public URL. So we are using ngrok to do that. All right, so this is what you do on the App Store side. On the app UI side, basically in Swift, what you do is you call this product.products. So you can get the product that you are trying to sell. So it is always advisable to do that. So you get the latest price, any offers, descriptions, screenshots, you get it all using this API. And then you say product.purchase. Basically you do these two steps. So you fetch the product, you say product.purchase. As soon as you do this, Apple is going to trigger a UI for payments, and it will do whatever is necessary. If you're not logged in, it will ask you to log in, and it will prompt you for your fingerprint or however you have set up your Apple Pay to be. And then once it is successful, your backend is now going to receive webhook events. Let's see what you need to do on the backend. So on the backend, you can do two things. So either you can set up a verify/verify URL, where as soon as your product.purchase happens successfully, you can call it from the app UI yourself. You can call /verify and you can verify the transaction. But this is optional. What you could do is you could just rely on a webhook, which you have configured over here, the sandbox URL or the production URL, both of these things. This webhook will be called by Apple. So let me walk through the step once again. You created the product, added the sandbox email for testing, added the sandbox server URL, which is a webhook. As soon as you buy it on the UI, Apple is going to trigger this webhook or call this webhook. It's going to do a post request on this webhook. You are going to get a JSON payload like this. Now, you need to verify this, right? Because this is a webhook exposed on the internet. Anybody can call this webhook. So you need to verify the payload. This payload is signed digitally. So you need to use Apple's public certificate, and you need to verify the digital signature of this payload. You don't really need to call any Apple servers at all. You just need Apple's public certificates to do that. If you are using a programming language like Java, Node.js, which already has SDKs, Apple gives you official SDKs, then your job is easy. Otherwise, you will need to write custom code. For example, in Go, I need to write custom code to do this verification, but it is straightforward. You don't need to call any Apple APIs. You can just digitally verify this without calling any Apple server. But you could also call the App Store Server API just in case. Again, I would keep it as optional, but if you want to reconcile with the Apple App Store, you could call the Apple Store Server API. You can Google search using this keyword. So yeah, that's the flow. So you do a one-time setup, create the products in your app, make sure you don't forget the price, localization, message, and countries. You add a sandbox account, that means an email. You configure the webhook URL. You need to do this once. And then on the app UI side, you basically get the products, you call .purchase. On the back end, Apple is going to send you the request.